Hello everybody, this is Jess. You'll have to forgive me, I'm kind of squatting in the operating room area right now. My office is being waxed. But we are going to talk about insurance capture buffer today. And so I am going to go ahead and share my screen and we will get started. All right, so back to the beginning here. ICB is otherwise known as Insurance Capture Buffer. So we are going to go over what that is. We're going to talk about how to use it, and we're going to talk about the different kinds of entries that we can put into it. Now, using the Insurance Capture Buffer, or ICB, is super important, and we'll go into detail as far as why. But we need to really get used to using the ICB, whether a patient is face-to-face with us or whether we are on the phone with them. It's really possible to capture this information from virtually anywhere. So please do use the ICB as much as humanly possible. The ICB, or Insurance Capture Buffer, is an insurance card scanning system. It's software. It is connected with the Vista system, and by Vista I mean Blue Vista, the old school Vista, and it is connected to actually multiple parts of it. It's connected to the insurance part of Vista, and it is connected to the appointment scheduling part because it needs to be able to tell us who is scheduled for that day. So what it does is it gives you a list of people who are scheduled for appointments that day, and I'll go into it in a minute. You can configure it to show the particular area that you're working at. It also will let you know if somebody has been flagged that we really need to go over their insurance information for that time. Again, I recommend that we go over everybody's, better safe than sorry, but there are people who in particular need to have their information gone over, and the system will tell you that. So how do we get to it? You click on the ICB icon on your computer. In Hampton system, that's under the gold star icon, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. Okay, as it's noted here on the PowerPoint, just make sure that you recognize and understand that the buffer is updated daily. It is your responsibility to make sure that everybody who's listed on that buffer is updated. Again, you can always review more insurance information than you're asked to, but at least everybody on that buffer needs to be cleared in some form or fashion by the end of the day. So I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint for just a second. We are looking at my desktop here. So at Hampton, we're going to go to the VA shortcuts. You can see my mouse, it's the gold star. Now, depending on how your folder view looks, if you have a list, it's in alphabetical order, so you'll look for ICB Ham and double click on that. If you have icons, again, it's in alphabetical order, but you'll see an icon that looks like an insurance card, and there it is, little insurance card right here. And so you will double click on that, wait a moment for it to come up. Mine likes to play little mind games with me. It'll ask you to sign in, so you'll put in your PIN number from your card, your PIV card, which I just signed in a minute ago, so it didn't ask me again. But I get the regular view just like all of you will have, where the patient update tab is the only tab that you're going to see. And what would normally show up right here would be the patients that are scheduled to come in for that day. So you'll see their name, where they're supposed to be, the appointment date and time. If anyone has checked them in, you'll be able to see who did so. This is important to note because if a patient happens to use a kiosk, you're going to want to make sure that you get that patient's attention so that they can come up and go over insurance information with you. Okay? So, again, it's your responsibility to make sure that information gets gone over. So I just have a little tutorial here on how to get to it. The gold star, going to find ICB Ham, sign in with your PIN number, and it takes you to this main screen. If you don't have a PIN number yet, or if something has happened and you've left your PIV home for that day, it will allow you to sign in with your Vista Access and Verify codes. So the very first time that you log into ICB, it's probably going to tell you to select a division, particularly if you have transferred from one VA to another one, it will ask you to pick. So whoever was using this particular ICB clearly had been to Orlando and Lake Baldwin VA clinic. So if you've been to more than one, you'll want to choose the appropriate one. Here, that's going to be Hampton. Once you do that, you'll want to configure your ICB, and the configuration is where you set up what your clinics are going to look like. So down at the bottom of the screen is your configure button. Now, one thing it's important to remember for the insurance capture buffer, or ICB, is that ICB likes to be yelled at. ICB does not listen unless you type in all caps. So if you are trying to look up a clinic and it's just not working, step back and hit your caps lock button and try it again. Okay? So what you can do is you will type in your clinic name in this box here, and it would be the same clinic name that you would look for in CPRS or in VSE. So for us, most of them start with HAM, so it'd be HAM PVL or HAM Surge, whatever, HAM PAC Team, what have you. So after you search, you'll get a drop-down list and you'll click on it, and if that's the clinic that you want to add, you will click the Add button, marked by number 2 here. Once you click Add, that clinic will show up over here on the right side under Preferred Locations. If you make a mistake and add the wrong clinic, you just click it to highlight and hit Remove. And that's how we move things back and forth. So you have a few different choices for what you can do with your clinic lists. You can save as, so you can give it a name. So, for example, if you are working in urology, you can find all of the urology clinics, make a list out of them, and save it as urology. You can also save something as your default, and saving as default means that that's the clinic list that will automatically populate on your ICB every time you log in. So you can change that if you'd like to, but you can save a whole bunch of lists over here on the right. So if you're an MSA that moves from one place to another frequently, then you can just select whatever list you're going to be working with that day. Okay? So to set up lists, again, we'll do a little bit of a step-by-step here. You're going to click the preferred location list. Select preferred location. Then you'll be asked to select the clinic. So you'll select the appropriate list that you've previously saved for your clinic that day. So this is assuming that you have already made these lists, and now we're going to pick one of the ones that you've made to be able to operate out of. Once you've selected that clinic, you're going to hit OK. All right. So here we can see a bunch of different clinics that are added to someone's preferred location. All right. So instead of actually saving this list, this person has elected to just hit use. So maybe this is a one-time thing where they've picked a bunch of clinics that they're going to be working at for that particular day, and they'll say, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and use this. Now, once you do that, once you click Save As or Use or what have you, the list is going to show up in front of you. Okay? So I'm going to take a minute and I'm just going to walk through this for just a second. Okay? So here's my ICB screen. I'm going to hit Configure. And I used urology as my example before. So to start from scratch, I'm just going to hit Remove All. Okay? So right now, I have several different lists that I've already made. Okay? If I select my 3 East list, it's going to show me all the clinics that I added to that 3 East area. And I can elect to go ahead and use that if I want. Nobody's showing up at the moment because it's a weekend and nobody's scheduled for today. So let's say that I want to make a new list. Say I want to make a general surgery list. Now we have to remember to put our caps lock on because ICB doesn't listen unless you yell at it. So what you have to do is start typing. And you have to hit enter after you've typed the first few letters because it doesn't automatically populate. So I've typed in ham surge. Let's say I want to do some general surgery. Okay. Well, first what I need to do is I need to get everybody off of this list here because I don't want anybody in the women's clinic on my new list. So say there are a couple of clinics that I want to add here to my general surgery list. Okay? It's probably not all of them, but I am going to just use these clinics as an example. And then what I can do is I can hit Save As, and I'll save it as general surgery. And then I can go ahead and hit Use. And it would tell me everyone here who was, scheduled for that day for surgery. Okay, so it's really pretty simple. What it looks like is this picture here on the right. If there were people scheduled for today, you would see their name, you would see where they were scheduled for, so the clinic. The division is like your facility site, and then you would see the appointment date and time, so you would know when they're supposed to come in. What I recommend is when you come in during the day, when you're getting ready in the morning, to go ahead and take a gander at your ICB first thing so that you have an idea who's coming in and your brain can store the names that are on that list so that they'll jump out at you when you start seeing people check in and looking through your vet link. So again, we only have access as MSAs to the patient update tab. Again, all other tabs are going to be administrative tabs, which you won't have access to. So in order to make updates to someone's ICB, all you do is double click on their name. Now a little aside here, patients can be flagged in several different ways, and you'll see what getting flagged looks like in just a moment. But some of the reasons why people can be flagged are either their insurance file is empty, so they don't have anything under insurance in the system. A patient's insurance file has no insurance listed, so that's a little bit different. Instead of the insurance just being blank, someone has actually selected the option that says no insurance. And so when that's done, we should be checking every time they come in just to make sure that nothing's changed, because you never know. People get jobs, they sign up for insurance, so it's always best to double check and ask. If the patient's insurance file hasn't been looked at since beyond the verification threshold time, which is usually, I guess, maybe a year or every 30 days. I don't know. It's going to ask. It's best to go over this stuff every single time they come in, no matter what. or if the patient has been manually flagged by a verifier, which you don't see very often, but it can be done. So an insurance update notification, this is what we call being flagged. You get a notification that the insurance needs to be reviewed. Again, we recommend that you go over this insurance information every single time regardless, but seeing the flag next to someone's name means they definitely for sure need to have this verified because the system is recognizing something that may be awry. So if a patient appears on the ICB list, then they need to have it verified. And also, people are often automatically flagged at the beginning of the year when insurance information rolls over. Some people's insurance may expire at the end of a year, so we need to verify. Usually people who get insurance through their work have like an open enrollment period, so it's not uncommon for people's insurances to change. Now, if you see a little exclamation point symbol next to someone's name, that means that their record is in definite need of attention. So we're going to talk about how to go ahead and create that. So one differentiation that I just want to make, because I'm weird about semantics, is that the ICB, the insurance capture buffer, is the software program. A buffer entry is what we do. It's how we go through and verify that the insurance information is correct, or at least mark that we've asked about it. So the buffer entries are created by entry clerks. That would be us in this case. They're processed by verification clerks on the back end, and what the entries have in them, as you'll see in a moment, can be a copy of the insurance card, the name of the insurance company, the information that the people who verify the insurance would need in order to verify the insurance. So we can update buffer entries by double-clicking on the patient who needs insurance information updated. So like we said a couple of slides ago, when you see the person's name, you would just hover your mouse over it and double-click. Now once you double-click, this screen is what shows up. On the top part of the screen, what you see is the patient's information, so their name and their social. The top half of the screen will include any insurance information that they have ever given us. I believe once insurance information is given to us, it's not removed even after it's no longer valid because of needing to keep records, etc. But if they have more than one insurance, all of those insurances will be noted up at the top half of the screen. And as you can see, in this particular case, all of them are in need of attention. Whichever ones have the little exclamation point sign next to them need to be verified. So the way you do that is that you would click on that particular insurance. And then on the bottom of the screen, what you see is previous buffer entries that have been done. So anytime anybody has verified insurance in the past, you'll see that on the bottom of the screen down here. So once you click on insurance information, what do we do then? Well, it really depends on what information the patient is able to give us. If they have a card, then we always want to scan it. If they say they don't have insurance, then we say they don't have insurance, and that's it. If they refused, then we'll select that option, and then there's other, and we will go over each of these going forward, okay? If they don't have a card to scan, that's what some of the other options are for. So a little bit more information on each one of these options. Scan card is pretty self-explanatory. It allows you to scan the card with your scanner if you have one, and then it will save that information in the system under the buffer. Okay. If you don't have a scanner, don't fear, there are other options here. So there really is not a reason to say, well, I don't have a scanner at my desk, so I can't do the insurance capture buffer, because there are other options. If the patient says they do not have insurance, then there's a buffer entry for that. We select that they said that they don't have insurance, we save that, and we've done our job. We don't have to force anybody to provide anything. We have now made a record that we asked and the person said they didn't have it, so we're good to go. Patient refused can be either one of two things. That doesn't mean necessarily that the patient is combative. Patient refused is used when either the patient cannot or will not provide insurance information. So technically, when a patient says, well, I do have insurance, but I don't have any of the information on me, that's considered a patient refused as well. So that's the selection that you would do. And obviously there's going to be no scanning because there's no information to scan. The last selection, other, the only time that this is used is if the patient happens to have their insurance information on them, but they don't have a card. So, for example, with some insurances, they may use their social as their ID. So they're able to give you that, but they don't have a card to scan. You can select other and enter that information in. So again, we're pretending now that we have double-clicked on the patient's name from the buffer list in the beginning, and we are brought to this screen. So you take a look at the insurance that you want to do a buffer entry for, and you double-click it. And then you click Create. And this is the buffer entry that we're creating, which is essentially just a record that we ask them about insurance. So you click on the name, you click Create. One thing to notice here is that what we're looking at is scanning the card in particular, so you'll want to make sure that the radio dial for scan card is selected. When you click Create and scan card is selected, you'll see a little pop-up that says put the item into the scanner. So you do so, you click OK. If you have a fancy new scanner, it will scan both sides at the same time. If you don't, it will scan the first side and then it will ask you to put it other side into the scanner. Once it is scanned, you'll see another little pop-up that will have a picture of the scan so that you can make sure that it's a quality image. Okay. You can choose to scan again by clicking the little scan button on the bottom left if it's no good. If it is good and you can see everything, then you'll just hit Save. Okay. Now, after you hit Save, that little pop-up is going to disappear and you will see your newest entry at the top of this list. And then you'll want to hit Close and then Refresh. That confused me at first because you would think that you would hit Refresh before Close, but what you're doing is you are closing that buffer and then refreshing the buffer list. Okay? So we're going to move on here to talk about making a buffer entry without scanning a card. Okay? So you would click on the insurance name that you want to verify. It'll ask you if you want to scan a card. You can hit No. Okay. And then you'll hit Close and Refresh. So this particular slide is about creating a buffer entry without any active insurance by scanning a new card. So you've double-clicked on the patient's name in the main screen. You can see here that they have no insurance information currently on file. So you would click Scan Card and then Create. In this particular case, because no insurance information has been entered yet, you'll have to enter that information into the system. So you scan the card, make sure it's a quality image like we talked about before, And at the bottom, you'll want to enter the insurance name, which is on the insurance card. And then you'll want to enter the subscriber ID, which again is on the insurance card, and hit save. You'll have a little pop-up that's going to tell you, we successfully added this. Do you want to scan another card? If you do, you hit yes. If you don't, hit no. So then you'll hit, we're closing this entry out and then refreshing the list, okay? So if the patient does not have insurance, all we do is we hit the no insurance radio dial. So we've asked, that still counts as creating an insurance buffer entry because we asked. If the patient doesn't have insurance and we don't create a buffer entry for it, there's no proof in the system that we actually verified. So that's considered by our system to be a missed opportunity to collect revenue, which I'll go over in a little bit. So it is just as important to select when someone does not have insurance. So you hit the radio dial, you hit create, a little pop-up will come up that says no insurance successfully processed, which means that we got your entry. And then you'll close the buffer entry and hit refresh. The same thing happens with patient refused. You double click the patient's name, you click patient refused, and again, this is for when they either cannot or will not provide you with the insurance information. So you click patient refused, create, little pop-up window comes up and says successfully processed. All right, good. You hit OK, then you close and refresh. Easy peasy. So what happens when someone shows up, say they walk up to you at the counter or you're talking to a patient on the phone and you happen to ask them about insurance and they say, oh yeah, I have new insurance. Or they come up to you and they say, hey, I just got a new job, and you're like, yay, congratulations. Can I give you my new insurance information? Well, they're not on the buffer list. So what do? Well, you pull up your ICB, and instead of clicking a name on the list, you click Add New. So in this case, it brings up a window where you'll be allowed to pull up your patient. And you can pull up a patient in ICB the same way you would pull up a patient in Vista or in CPRS. Our favorite way is to use the first initial of the last name and the last 4 digits. You can also look by their whole social if that's what they give you instead, or you can try to look by their whole name if their name is not common. So once you find the proper person, you will click on their name to highlight it blue and then click OK. Just to make sure that you've gone over the 2 patient identifiers, okay, so verify their birthday as well, just to make triple sure that this is the person whose insurance information you want to add. After you've selected the patient, then you will be asked to select the location. When you do that, it's asking you to select the location of the clinic where the patient is. So wherever they have an appointment that day, or if they don't have an appointment that day, maybe wherever you're working when they approach you. Again, all caps. You type in the name of your clinic and hit enter, then you click on it to highlight it blue and hit OK. So now the screen should look familiar. Now you should see this patient's information at the top. If they have the card, you'll scan it, okay, and then click create, and then go through the process of creating a new buffer entry like we did just a few moments ago. So why do we bother with the insurance capture buffer? Well, it's a really important part of our workflow for several reasons. So from a legality standpoint, by law, some veterans do have to be billed a copay. This isn't up to the VA. It's not a facility choice. This is U.S. law. So U.S. law says that if we are going to operate as the Department of Veterans Affairs or in the Veterans Health Administration, then we are required to assess a copay for certain veterans. If we have to do that, it's better if we're able to bill an insurance company than the patient directly, right? So if they have insurance, it would be a really great idea for us to have it so that the patient doesn't end up getting a bill for their copay. We just bill the insurance and then the patient doesn't have anything to worry about. Okay? Now, the money that we collect through ICB comes directly to the facility. It doesn't go in the national bucket, it comes right to us. So this is one of the areas that we have a very direct opportunity to contribute to our facility and be good stewards of our facility. Because not only are we complying with U.S. law, so we're keeping our facility in compliance, but we are actually contributing directly to our facility, in terms of our ability to be able to make improvements around the facility, etc. Okay? So we do have an opportunity to very directly impact our facility. So it's important to know who our insurance collection management people are. Here it's going to be Miss Tracy Jackson, the Administrative Officer for Health Administration Services at the Hampton VA Medical Center. So quick knowledge check. How do we know if our patient insurance information needs to be updated? So it's kind of a trick question. Insurance information should always be double checked, but the way you know in particular that someone absolutely needs an update is because they are flagged on the insurance capture buffer. Okay? So if they show up on your buffer list when you sign in for that clinic, they need to be reviewed. Number two, how is the patient insurance information entered? That is through a buffer entry. So we double click on the patient's name and it pulls up their information and we create a buffer entry. What are the options for entering insurance information? There are 4 of them. You have the scan card, you have the no insurance, you have patient refused, and then you have other. There is a demonstration where it can be done online. To be honest, it's better for you to get into the insurance capture buffer. Maybe have somebody sit with you your first couple times doing it, because you can watch somebody do it all day long and it's not quite the same as putting your hands on it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to your trainers or reach out to myself. I'm at jessica.graves1@va.gov, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.